Welcome to our practical session for second year students and partial 1 level students for Credit Hour System. Today we will talk about wax pattern for metallic partial denture construction. It will be in two parts. The first part for the upper class 2 Kennedy classification. The second part will be for the lower class 1 Kennedy classification. Before we start, you should know your instruments. You will need wax knife, wax carver, base plate wax sheets, glue inlay wax, a napkin for your workplace protection, and of course your working cost. To start designing, you should know the principles of designing first. You should decide your saddle area, your direct retainers, your indirect retainers, and major and minor connectors. So, for each design, you have to cover these 5 points. So now, let's apply this to our design. For the upper class 2 Kennedy classification, as you can see, for the saddle area, this part is called the minor connector of the saddle area, which is meshwork, because in the free end saddle we use a combination saddle, so the shaded red part is the minor connector and the dotted part will be the completion with acrylic part. For the direct retention, we use the RPI on the left 5 and the double acre on the other side. Our major connector is ring shape design, and for the minor connector is all the parts that's connecting the parts from the right to the left with the major connector. This is called the minor connector, and of course many designs can be used for this case, but we choose to do this. And now let's do the practical part. As you can see, using the base plate red wax, first we will do the major connector. Soften your wax on the flame, adapt it to your model. First, you are going to transfer your design to your cast, and then just follow your design, remove the excess wax, and start adapting the base plate wax to your drawing. Try to make your wax as neat as possible. Imagine that your wax is going to be transferred into metal, so it has to be smooth, rounded, and without any irregularities. Follow your drawing till you finish all your wax. Here we are doing the connection between the minor connector of the saddle and the major connector. This part is called the external finish line. So, as you can see, we are smoothing the wax as much as we can. The junction between the wax of the major connector and the wax of the minor connector of the saddle is called the external finish line. After it's going to be metal, this finish line is going to be the attachment of the acrylic portion of the saddle. course, this is the modified cast, so all the preparation that was done in the teeth should be present here. As you can see, all the parts should be smooth. Now, after we finished all the major connector and the minor connector portions, now we are transferring to the occlusal rests, starting with this clasp. As we said in the design, it's called the RBI clasp. We choose this clasp because it has a stress breaking action. This is a free end saddle, so we need to distribute all the forces between the saddle and the teeth. The RBI clasp is composed of 3 parts. First, a mesial occlusal rest and proximal plate near to the saddle and an I-bar arm. Keep your wax neat as possible from the beginning to avoid any delay in your time. This is the canine wrist. Here in this case, we have to use what is called indirect retention. As you will take in your lecture, the indirect retention is to avoid the flippage of the or the rotation of your denture away from the teeth. So the indirect retainer should be on the opposite side of the fulcrum axis. What is the fulcrum axis? It's an axis or an imaginary line connecting the most posterior direct retainer, here the Doppelacre, and the most anterior direct retainer on the other side, which is the RBI. The position of the indirect retainer should be perpendicular to this fulcrum axis, and you will find that we choose to use the canine because if you take a line from this canine to the fulcrum axis, you will find that it's perpendicular on it and bisecting it. So if the denture is going to rotate to the opposite side, the canine wrist will do an indirect retention action and avoid this rotation. Here we are completing the Doppelacre clasp. It has 2 occlusal rests. Their bases are facing together. And now we are doing the retentive clasp arm. And we have made the reciprocal arms. Here we are doing the I-bar arm. It has a wide base and tapering to the retentive tip till reaching the undercut below the survey line. Don't forget to open the holes of the meshwork on the saddle and finish your wax and connect all the parts together and make it smooth as much as you can. This is the finished wax pattern. As you can see, it's all shiny. They are all connected together without any gaps between the wax parts. Now let's move to lower class 1 Kennedy classification. Again, for the free end saddle, the minor connector of the saddle will be ladder shape and the direct retainers will be RBI clasp. Major connector will be the lingual plate connecting right and left sides, and for the indirect retainer we will do the cingulum rest beneath the major connector for the action that we have said before. Transferring your design to your cast, and now let's start adding wax to our design, softening the wax and adapt it to your cast to make the major connector. Here the major connector is the lingual plate. And don't forget to make all the surfaces smooth. Follow the festoning of the teeth. The major connector is resting above the cingulum of the anterior teeth and above the survey line of the posterior teeth. Smooth all the borders, avoid any undercut areas, make it smooth as possible to avoid the tongue feeling the parts of the major connector contacting the teeth. This part is for the finish line, the external finish line, which will connect the acrylic portion of the saddle area to the framework after being constructed. This is the minor connector of the saddle. This is not the whole saddle. This is the minor connector of the saddle. Why? Because we choose to use what's called a combination saddle, because in the free end saddle resorption always occur, so we need to do relining. So we need to have acryl or acrylic resin to be able to make relining. Metal cannot be relined. Keep this in mind. So again, in the free end saddle, we use combination saddles, part metal and part acrylic. Here, this is another shape or another form of the minor connector of the saddle, which is called ladder shape. Here we have two areas because we have missing 6 and 7. We will make the other side the same as we did. Smoothen all the areas of the wax. Attach every part of the wax to each other. And now let's start the parts of the direct retainers. Here we are making the RBI clasp. Again, it's composed of 3 parts: mesial occlusal rest and proximal plate and RBI arm or an I arm, gingivally approaching clasp. Okay. Here we added the cingulum rest. This cingulum rest is below the major connector. So again, keep in mind that this portion is resting in the prepared canine below the major connector. This is the proximal plate. And again, each part of the wax should be connected to each other. Do not leave any gaps and don't make any roughness in the wax. All you are doing here is going to be converted into metal, so you have to minimize any finishing for the metal by keeping your wax as neat as possible. This is the I-part arm. Add your wax gently, drop by drop. Avoid wax flowing all over your cast to keep it neat as much as you can. And of course, in the end, you will be finishing all these wax. Here we have finished all our design or our wax pattern, and this is the final shape that you should be doing or you should have at the end of your practical session. As you can see, all the wax is clean, your cast is clean, your finish line is present, your extension of the wax is correct, all the wax is connected together, and here the same design is on the cast. This is your final design. Wish you a very nice practical session. Thank you.